Hey, today we're going to do a little bit more on those simple wraps that we talked about the other week and how you can use the vintage style flower power findings to make your own flower bouquet brooches, and probably you could wire them onto crescent bases, cups, you name it. You know, it's a great method and so much that you can do. I did a really big brooch this week with the painted findings and pod charms that we've talked on and off about, but I haven't really demonstrated yet. If you want to come over here, I'll show you the brooch close up and show you how I wired on the back pin back, because we didn't talk about that the other week. How I actually do a pod charm, and also a few other little simple projects that will get your juices going and help you to have a lot of fun with this technique as well. So we really didn't talk in that last video about the types of pliers that you should have, but you need a round nose pliers. These have cutters in them, in the joint. You should have a good cutters besides, because sometimes you just can't get in there good enough and you really need a pointed end. So pair cutters. These are flat nose, and that's for pressing down wire. And these are just a longer pair round nose, which are better for looping onto. So I use all three of these a lot. So, you know, whatever, we carry them on the site. We, in fact, even have a kit, a Beadsmith kit that has everything you need. And it's a good basic plier. If you don't have them already, that's a good one to start with and pick up. The pliers and stuff in it are reasonable. But, you know, whatever you have is fine. You don't have to have, you know, the best pliers in the world. You just have to have some that work. Okay, so to get back to it, this is a brooch that I made this week when I was down here fooling around, and it contains actually the pod charms. We've talked about pod charms different times. It's made a lot like the brooch that I made in my video last week with the wired, but this one has the painted findings that we ice resined and glittered, and I've used some turquoise beads and some old Hong Kong yarn ball type beads. We have these yarn ball type beads we have on the website. We don't have a lot of them left, but they are awesome. You might want to pick some up before we run out. But basically, I've done each thing on a stem like this. As on a stem, only it was longer than this. And then it was all bound together. I used, for the base stem, I used 20 gauge copper wire, and for the binding, I used 24 gauge binding wire. Just looped it around like that, and I made this in about an hour. It didn't take very long. Also, as you can see, I've just bound the pin back on through these holes. I could have maybe done that a little bit more neatly, but I'm still fooling with this technique. I actually saw a brooch like this many years ago when I was dealing in antique jewelry. In fact, I saw several of them that were made just this way. Probably it was someone's craft or home project. I don't know. Maybe it was a designer. Maybe it was popular at one time. I never could find out a whole lot about it, but it was done pretty much basically in this way and then bound. I've kind of added to it. This kind of has a techno look to it, but it also has a very retro look. It's a large pin. It's probably about 5 inches long. It's heavy. You would want to wear it on a coat probably, but I just love this. I don't know if I'll ever sell it until maybe I make one I like better. I don't know. Anyway, it's a good teaching piece for now, because there are several principles in here involved that I can teach you and show you. For example, the pod charm. We've talked about the pod charms a lot. Let me show you how to do one. Basically, what you need is a long head pin. I have long copper ones here that I use. And what you're going to do is put your bead on first. Get a little E-bead first and stick it on the end to kind of hold it, because sometimes these holes in beads are big and don't hold as well as you'd like. So a little finishing bead is a good idea. And then instead of putting this on right side up, we put it wrong side up. Down. I should say wrong side down. Put it this way, right side up, wrong side down. Opposite from what you normally would do. Put it that way. And we put it on there. See, it's on there like that now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to gently take our fingers, because you can, and just press that down, manipulate it around the bead. See? Look at that. How cute is that? And then if you want, you could take your round nose pliers and bend this piece in. I've done that. Or leave it out. I don't know. I think it might be better jewelry making if you bend it in, because this could catch on clothing or scratch someone. But for now, for time constraints, we're just going to leave it out like this. And I'll come back maybe and do that later. Then I take a little petal bead. Could be this one, could be any bead you like. And put it on there. And stack it. And then we need another little bead to put it on the end. Now these on here were bound, as you can see, and made into a stem. But what if I don't want to make it into a stem like this? What if I want to make it into a charm that hangs, or an earring, which I've done that a lot? Well, then do it. Bend it, loop it, bring it around, cross it over, and then wrap. Hold, I don't know, can you see? Like I say, I'm not the best at this. I'm sure a lot of you girls are way better at this than me. I'm just kind of learning basic wraps. I know cage work better, and that's a whole different animal. And it's kind of one of those things that cage work is kind of like, you just kind of do it. That's why I haven't done a video on it yet, because I'm trying to think, how do I teach that? I know there are some people teaching it out there. I'm not sure that I like their approach. But their end results are beautiful. But I got to figure out what my approach is before I try and teach you. But anyway, that's the basic wire wrap that I use to make a pod charm, and now I can make an earring dangle out of it if I want. But if I had wanted, I could have stacked all my parts on a straight head pin, like that same way I did, but then wrap it. And what I do is I take this binding wire and I put it around it. And just for the sake of argument, I'm going to bind it a little bit more. See what I did? I just looped it around it. And then just come around, round, 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 round. And then with the other way. This is really way, way, way too long. But round and round and round. See? And then I'll probably take this and twist it off. Now this is, you know what, for the sake of, I'm wasting wire terribly. That's why I should have measured first. But anyway, twisting it off just requires you do this. Now you don't want to do this too tightly up close to the finish of it, because if you do, it'll just bust right off. And if you don't have enough to make, you know, to make your tail and finish it off right and tuck it, it's not going to hold good for you. So about that much is good. Okay? Then cut it off. Now you need to loop it and tuck it. And actually, for this piece, I could have done it a little bit shorter, but I think maybe I'll just kind of do it this way in the ornament of it. Now, if you were beading onto filigree and doing this, you would be tucking it in so that you would be making it invisible. But here's where you use your flat nose, is to kind of just flatten that up. Okay? And like I say, I'm sure many of you have better ways of doing that sort of thing. But that's the way you finish off when you're doing cage work, and it works on here too. Now once you've done this, you know, you could make a brooch like this. You'd probably need a longer wire. But, you know, the way this is right here, you could actually bend it and turn it. And then you could cut this off and file it so it would be sharp, so it would stick through something, get yourself a nib, and you would have a stick pin. Awesome? Stick pin. Or you could cut it off and make it into a dangle of some kind. Or it's kind of like when you do flower arranging. If you buy a bunch of silk flowers, you want to make a nice arrangement, they all have to come off those cheap plastic stems they are on. And they have to be put on wire and bound with the florist tape. It's the same principle. I did it a lot when I was doing flower arranging. So it's the same principle. If you've ever done that, you've got this down. I was going to show you one more thing that you could do to make a pendant. A very simple pendant or charm is, again, with your e-bead, and then with a tiny little bead. I like these turquoise beads. And these are pieces that I did the color with the acrylic, and then I did some of the Gilder's paste to bring up the sheen a little bit on the edges, and then I diamond glazed them last night, actually. Put this through here, put this through here. Okay, pull it up. I'm going to cut this off a little bit, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to coil this.
Just wrap it and coil it. But you got to get it really tight because this is what's going to hold your piece. Okay? Alright, then I want to take my flat nose pliers and I want to flatten that a little bit. See, I've got a loop. And now I can put this on a bracelet on chain. Could you imagine on chain all around your wrist? How cool would that be? Very excellent. Or you could take and do a squiggly with heavier wire. The 24 is not strong enough. And make yourself a coil. I call them squigglies. I don't know, whatever I call it. Anyway, go about this far and then turn it up on itself. We did this last week. Maybe you remember. Put a bead. And here's another one I'm going to spear. But it's got a squiggly end now, okay? And I'm going to cut this off. And I'm going to attempt to do the same thing in a good way to show you. You got to be tight though. You got to get this down really tight because this is what holds your whole charm together, okay? And actually this is a little thicker than I'd like because I want the jump ring to come through it easily. See if I can flatten that, diminish it a little bit. Oops, I snapped it. That, you know what, that'll still work. But the main thing is it sits in there, it's not going anywhere. And now you have a squiggly charm to make a little tendril. You could even pull it out a little bit. The only thing is not too far because it might snag on clothing. But for earrings it might be alright. You could even dangle something else out of it. But isn't that fun? Don't you want to just go do it? So I think maybe I'll leave you alone now so you can go get your parts and tools and give this a try. And if you have any questions, you know where I am. I want you to contact me. I'd love to help.